cashier whispered it with just enough pity to make my stomach turn. "Your card. It's been declined." It was a quiet Tuesday morning. I was standing at the checkout line in my local grocery store, cart filled with produce, yogurt cups on sale, and the same cinnamon tea I'd been drinking since the 90s. Nothing fancy, nothing out of budget. The young girl behind the counter blinked, then smiled nervously. "Do you have another card, ma'am?" My fingers trembled slightly as I reached for my phone, trying to act like this was some glitch. Maybe I used the wrong card. Maybe I typed the wrong PIN. But deep down, I knew better. 2 minutes later, after a hurried call to my bank while still clutching a bundle of bananas, I knew the truth. My savings account, the one I'd had since before my Jenny was born, the one my late husband and I built for rainy days, retirement, and maybe a little travel, was empty. Completely, zero balance, transferred out 6 days ago, $122,416, gone. I couldn't breathe for a second. My hand gripped the shopping cart like it might roll away from me. "I'm sorry," I muttered, voice shaking. "I'll have to come back." I left the cart, walked out into the parking lot, and sat in my dusty Camry for a full 10 minutes, staring at the bank app on my phone like it would apologize. Instead, it just blinked back at me. Balance, $0. That's when I remembered the form. Just one page, looked like it came from a Word template. Trevor had brought it over the month after Dawn passed, said it was to, quote, simplify my finances, said it was a safer way to protect my retirement from online scammers, that the new account he set up had FDIC insurance, a better interest rate. Jenny nodded along like it was gospel, sipping her oat milk latte and scrolling TikTok while I hesitated. "It's smart, Mom," she had said. "Just let him handle it. You worry too much." I'd signed it, against my better judgment, but I signed. Because I was grieving, and tired, and because Trevor was my son-in-law. Family. And I didn't want to seem like a paranoid old woman. Now I was feeling like a fool. I scrolled through my texts, heart pounding, and opened the last message Trevor had sent. "Just a heads up, Margaret. We'll be moving some funds this week to cover a real estate investment. No worries. It's all above board. We'll send you a breakdown soon. Smile." No mention of how much. No mention of permission. No, "Are you okay with this?" Just a cheerful emoji and a casual theft of my entire financial future. I gripped the phone tighter. The air around me smelled like spilled motor oil and melting plastic from the afternoon sun baking the asphalt. Somewhere in the distance, a train horn echoed. My skin prickled. And then, just like that, I stopped shaking. Because while Trevor might think I'm just a retired secretary with arthritis and a Costco membership, what he doesn't know is I've kept journals since 1987, every single day. And I always read the fine print. That night, I sat at the kitchen table with my ledger open and a black pen in my hand. I'd always kept a journal, but I also kept what I called my facts book. A simple spiral-bound notebook filled with numbers, dates, phone call summaries, anything I didn't want to forget. And now, as the cicadas droned outside and my tea cooled untouched beside me, I flipped back to the entry from January 14th. Trevor stopped by, brought a form for new account, said it was a transfer, not a withdrawal. Had Jenny with him. Seemed rushed. I asked if I could review it with someone. He said no need. It was just a move. I signed, photocopied it after they left. I set my pen down. That photocopy was in the file drawer by the coat closet, where I kept all the important things Dawn and I had organized for, just in case. Marriage license, life insurance, birth certificates. And now, tucked between 2 manila folders, that damn form. I stared at the signature, mine on the bottom, tidy and unmistakable. But just above it, another one. Trevor's. The advisor. The authorized party. And beside that, a routing number I didn't recognize. The next morning, I shuffled across the street to Frank's place. Frank had been my neighbor for 27 years. Retired state trooper. Always wore the same baseball cap that said Korean War Vet, even though he wasn't old enough to have served in it. Said it made people underestimate him. "Got a minute?" I asked, holding out the form. Frank squinted at it, then leaned in close, the brim of his cap shadowing the page. "This routing number's out of Nevada," he said slowly. "That ain't a local bank. He opened his laptop and started typing like a man on a mission. I sat on his porch while the smell of cigarette ash and strong black coffee swirled in the air. Frank didn't talk much when he worked, just narrowed his eyes and muttered under his breath. After a few minutes, he pushed his chair back. "This account's under an LLC shell company," he said, jaw tight. "Got registered 5 months ago. Guess who the listed manager is?" I didn't need to. He flipped the screen toward me anyway. Trevor D. Hensley. I felt a heat rise behind my ears, spreading down into my chest, like I'd swallowed something scalding. Frank rubbed the back of his neck. "You want to keep this quiet for now?" I nodded. "I need a little time." The next few weeks, I played nice. I smiled at Sunday dinners. Let Jenny ramble about her new hair serum line on Etsy, while Trevor made snide jokes about how hard it is supporting retired people. "Money's tight for everybody these days," he said one night, sipping from a beer bottle like he'd earned it. "We've got to be smart with our assets, consolidate." My jaw clenched, but I didn't flinch. Because while he was bragging, I was busy. Frank showed me how to file Freedom of Information Act requests, how to pull state-level business registrations. I learned how to scan banking transfer histories and dig through routing ledgers that most folks wouldn't even know existed. At the library, I printed out 2 months' worth of transaction summaries. They showed withdrawals I'd never authorized, some masked as investment fees, others transferred into the Shell LLC, all leading back to Trevor. And through it all, I kept my smile. I logged every conversation, I made copies of every file. I even saved a voicemail from a kind bank clerk, Mel, who left a message one day saying, "Ms. Jeffries, something about this account activity feels odd. I just thought you should know." By mid-March, I had a binder thicker than the Book of Psalms, and it all pointed to the same thing. Trevor had been siphoning my savings for months. And Jenny? She didn't just defend him, she mocked me. "You're being paranoid," she snapped when I brought it up gently over coffee. "Trevor's doing his best to help you. Just because you don't understand how investments work doesn't mean he's stealing." She stood, shaking her head like I'd accused a saint of murder. "I can't deal with this negativity. You always find fault. Maybe you just miss Dad and need someone to blame." I sat there, stunned, my own daughter. She didn't even look back when she slammed the door behind her. I didn't cry. I just turned to my journal, flipped to the next blank page, and wrote, "She's made her choice. Now it's time for mine." Frank had a saying. When a man thinks he's invincible, that's when he starts leaving fingerprints. And Trevor? Oh, he was leaving whole handprints. It started with a poker night. I'd heard about them before. His little Thursday gatherings out in Ridgeview, at a rental property he'd invested in. Frank had helped me pull the deed records. The house wasn't in Trevor's name exactly, but in the LLC, same shell company tied to my missing savings. I waited until the 3rd week of April to make my move. That night, I baked an apple pie, real crust, no shortcuts, and sent Jenny a cheerful little text, dropping this by for Trevor's poker group. Just a little surprise. Smile. She replied with a heart emoji and said they'd be thrilled. They weren't. I arrived just after 7 p.m. and parked down the street. Walked up slow in my orthopedic flats, pie still warm in a Tupperware container and my phone in my jacket pocket, already recording. Trevor answered the door, looking more annoyed than surprised. "Oh, hey, Margaret?" He sounded like he'd bitten a lemon. "I baked," I said brightly. Thought the guys might like something sweet while they gamble. He hesitated. I caught the flicker of panic in his eyes before he covered it with a lazy grin. "Sure. Come in." The house smelled like beer, old carpet, and cheap aftershave. There were poker chips spread across a folding table, and 3 other men, one of whom, to my silent thrill, worked at the same bank as Mel. "Trevor's mother-in-law," one of them laughed. "Didn't know you were sponsoring this little operation." I smiled sweetly, just being neighborly. I didn't stay long. 5 minutes, tops. Long enough for my recorder to capture a throwaway joke I'd been praying for. As I turned to leave, one of the men said, "Sheesh, Trevor, I need me a mother-in-law who bankrolls my hobbies." Trevor's response? A smirk and this little gem. "Just rob a widow. Easy money." They all laughed. Except me. I kept walking, heart pounding but face neutral. Back home, Frank and I played the audio twice. No one said my name, not directly, but the implication was thick enough to choke on. And paired with the documents we'd gathered, it was the final nail. We'd been building a case. But now I had proof of intent. The next morning, I made an appointment at the courthouse, filed a petition to initiate proceedings under elder financial abuse and fraud. Mel, the bank clerk, agreed to testify. She'd already flagged Trevor's activity internally, but didn't have the authority to take it further without a formal complaint. "You're not the first," she said quietly as she handed over another printout. "But you're the first to fight back." I added it all to my binder. Journal entries, bank logs, copies of Trevor's signature beside his forged ones, the voicemail from Mel, the audio clip from poker night, and that one form from January, photocopied, time-stamped, and notarized by the librarian 2 days after I signed it. I didn't tell Jenny. Didn't breathe a word when she stopped by that weekend with a tote bag full of candles. She was testing for her product line. She sniffed the air. "Smells like cinnamon," she said. I smiled, wiping my hands on a towel. "Been baking. Just a little something for poker night." That made her pause, but she didn't ask. Just looked at me the way she had when she was 12, and knew she'd broken a lamp, but hoped I hadn't noticed. "Too late, sweetheart." That night, I sat in bed with a heating pad on my back and reread the court filing 3 times. The language was clinical, sure, but beneath every word, there was a quiet fury. Subject: knowingly transferred funds under false pretenses. Evidence supports willful intent to defraud a senior citizen through coercive and deceptive practices. It didn't just name Trevor. It also said, defendant is the spouse of the petitioner's daughter, whose awareness of the transfers remains in dispute. Jenny would see her name in black and white. She'd finally have to choose which side she was really on. I didn't tell them I'd filed anything, not at first. I wanted Trevor to stew in his arrogance a little longer. He still thought I was harmless, retired, grieving, maybe a little confused. He didn't know I'd turned confusion into fuel. But that Sunday, that was the moment. Jenny invited me over for dinner. She'd made a big show about how they were trying to reconnect. Lasagna, wine, the works. I knew it was a smokescreen. Maybe Trevor had sensed something in my tone last time. Maybe Jenny felt the tension in the air. I brought dessert. Store-bought shortcake. No more apple pie favors. The house smelled like basil and burnt garlic. Jenny fluttered around the kitchen like she was auditioning for a cooking show, humming and plating salad. Trevor was in the living room, feet on the ottoman, scrolling his phone. I waited until after dinner, until the table was cleared, and Jenny stepped out to take a call from one of her brand partners. That left me and Trevor in the kitchen, alone. The dishwasher was humming. The overhead light flickered once, casting a shadow across the tile. He didn't even look up when I stepped closer. "You know," I said softly, "Frank taught me how to check routing numbers." That made him freeze. I watched the muscles in his neck tense. He turned slowly, smile forced. "Excuse me?" I stepped closer. "Nevada. Your shell company. The one my money disappeared into." He chuckled, low and mean. "Oh, come on, Margaret. You really think anyone's going to believe that? A sweet old lady confused about her accounts?" He put his glass down, leaned on the counter. "You signed the form. I didn't force you. And Jenny will back me. Always." He smirked. "Let's be real. You're not exactly sharp these days." That's when I pulled out the little voice recorder. Pressed play. "Just rob a widow. Easy money." The sound of his own voice filled the kitchen. I watched his face pale. Then I spoke, clear and calm. "You stole from me. I have the documents, the audio, the bank logs, and I filed the court petition Thursday." He tried to laugh, but it came out brittle. "Jenny's not going to believe you," he hissed. "She thinks you're paranoid. Then maybe she should hear this too." I pulled the second recorder from my purse, the one I'd started right before dinner. His smirk vanished. That's when Jenny stepped back into the kitchen, phone still in hand, confused. "What's going on?" she asked. Trevor spun around too fast, knocking over his wine glass. "Nothing," he barked. "Your mom's just spinning some story again." I held her gaze. "I filed a claim for financial abuse. Your husband has been siphoning my savings into a shell account he owns. I have proof, including what he just said, on tape." Jenny's mouth opened, then closed. Her face drained of color. She looked at Trevor. "Is this Is she serious? He blustered. She's got nothing. Just a bunch of old lady notebooks and her weird conspiracy theories. Jenny turned to me slowly. You recorded him? I nodded once. I've got everything. And the bank clerk's testifying. The judge already accepted the filing. For a moment, the kitchen was silent except for the soft whir of the dishwasher and Trevor's shallow breathing. Then he snapped. You manipulative little. He lunged forward, but not at me. At the recorder. I backed up, but Jenny moved first. She stepped between us, her hand out. Stop. Her voice was cold. Trevor froze mid-step, rage flickering across his face. Jenny, she's trying to ruin us. She turned on him. Did you steal from her? Silence. Trevor, did you take her money? He didn't answer. He didn't have to. Jenny backed away like she'd just touched something scalding. Oh my God, she whispered. You really did it. She looked at me then. Eyes brimming, voice quiet. You really had to do this? I stared right back. No, sweetheart. He did. The county courthouse smelled like lemon floor polish and nerves. It was a bright Monday morning, but inside, everything felt gray. Cold tile. Hollow footsteps. The kind of place where secrets go to die under fluorescent lights. I sat at the plaintiff's table with my attorney, Ms. Harmon, a young woman with sharp eyes and a voice like steel wrapped in velvet. Frank sat a few rows behind me, arms crossed, watching everything like a hawk. And Jenny? She was nowhere to be seen. Trevor walked in 10 minutes late, wearing a too-tight navy suit and a forced grin like he was arriving at a job interview. I swear, he actually waved at me, like we were just two neighbors, running into each other at the post office. Judge Harmon, no relation to my lawyer, was already seated when Trevor sauntered up to his side of the courtroom. She looked up from the file with a face carved from granite. This is a preliminary hearing on the matter of financial abuse and fraudulent transfer of funds, she began. Petitioner, Margaret Jeffries. Respondent, Trevor Hensley. She glanced down her glasses. Mr. Hensley, you are not an attorney. Are you representing yourself? Trevor cleared his throat. Yes, Your Honor. I didn't think I'd need a lawyer for a family misunderstanding. The judge arched one eyebrow. I see. My attorney rose, her heels clicking like punctuation. Your Honor, we have submitted documentation establishing that Mr. Hensley coerced Mrs. Jeffries into signing a transfer form under false pretenses, then rerouted the funds into a business account registered solely under his name. She walked to the bench, calm and deliberate, and handed over a binder. In addition to this, we have bank logs, a notarized copy of the original transfer, and a voicemail from a bank clerk, Melinda Crane, who identified inconsistencies and flagged the transactions. Judge Harmon flipped through the pages, lips pressed into a thin line. Go on. Ms. Harmon didn't hesitate. We also have audio of the respondent admitting to misappropriating the funds. She pressed play on a small speaker. Just rob a widow. Easy money. The courtroom fell into a vacuum of stunned silence. I heard someone in the second row gasp. Trevor's smug face collapsed like a house of cards in a windstorm. He jumped to his feet. That's not what I meant. That was just a joke. The judge didn't flinch. Sit down, Mr. Hensley. Trevor fumbled back into his chair, mouth open, no words coming out. My lawyer pressed on. In addition to the audio, we have evidence showing that the LLC he used was created shortly after Mr. Jeffries passed, and that funds were withdrawn over a period of 4 months with no documented consent from Mrs. Jeffries. She paused. We also have Mrs. Jeffries' journals, daily entries detailing each financial conversation, with timestamps, including the day Trevor presented her with the original form. The judge turned to me then. Do you have that journal entry? I stood slowly. My knees ached, but I didn't care. I opened the leather-bound book I'd carried for decades. Yes, Your Honor. My voice was steady. January 14th. Trevor brought me a form he said would protect my savings. Jenny was with him. I asked if I could review it. He said no need. I signed, but I copied it. It felt off. Judge Harmon nodded. You may be seated, ma'am. Then she turned to Trevor, flipping back through the binder. Her voice dropped into something colder. Mr. Hensley, you claim this was a family misunderstanding, But you funneled over $120,000 from a grieving widow's retirement into a private business account. Trevor shifted in his seat. I didn't steal it. It was an investment. I told her. You didn't tell her, the judge cut in. You manipulated her. You forged withdrawal slips. You laughed about it over poker. She closed the binder with a snap that echoed. I'm granting an emergency injunction to freeze the business account. All activity is suspended, pending a full investigation. The court is also referring this case for criminal review under the state's elder abuse statute. Trevor finally spoke, but it wasn't a protest. It was a whimper. This is a mistake. Judge Harmon looked straight through him. No, Mr. Hensley. This is justice. Coming up next, Part 6. The Fallout. What happens when the local news ran the story within 48 hours? Son-in-law accused of siphoning widow's savings in elder fraud scheme. They didn't name me in the headline, but folks around here didn't need the details spelled out. Small towns have a way of connecting dots faster than any courtroom ever could. By the end of the week, my phone was full of messages. Old friends, PTA moms from 20 years back, former students from the high school where I'd worked the front desk for nearly 3 decades. I saw the news, I'm so sorry. You were always the sharpest woman I knew. He had no idea who he was messing with. I got 3 bouquets delivered in one day. One of them from the ladies at the Methodist Quilting Group. Another from Mel, the bank clerk, with a handwritten card. You're the reason I came forward. Never doubt that. Meanwhile, Trevor's world started crumbling like stale shortbread. The court froze all assets connected to the LLC. His so-called investment properties were now the subject of an IRS audit, thanks to his little habit of creative accounting. The poker buddy who worked at the bank, he got suspended pending internal review. And Jenny? She called me the day after the hearing. Her voice trembled. I didn't know, Mom. I swear I didn't know it was that bad. I didn't yell. Didn't cry. I just said you didn't want to know. She fell silent. They'll be seizing his accounts. And you may want to talk to a lawyer about joint liability. Another long pause. Then, are you going to help me? I exhaled. The kind of breath you hold for years. No, Ginny, I helped you for 34 years. I'm done now. That week, her little candle business closed its online store. Turns out her partner didn't want to be associated with fraud headlines. Customers started asking uncomfortable questions. Refund requests flooded her inbox. Frank called me from his porch. She's not taking it well, he said. I sipped my tea, the real kind, from the blue mug Dawn gave me on our 30th anniversary. That's her journey now. As for Trevor, he was arrested 2 days later on charges of financial elder abuse, forgery, and wire fraud. His mugshot made the evening news. I saw it while folding laundry and didn't even blink. His eyes looked dead, like a man who finally realized the game he thought he was winning had never been his to begin with. And the community? Oh, they rallied. The town paper called me quietly heroic. The judge sent a handwritten note. Braver than most men I've seen in this courtroom. And my former principal stopped me outside the post office, shook my hand and said, You showed all of us how to fight back with dignity. And Jenny? She called once, from a new number. I didn't pick up. Instead, I tapped on the voicemail and listened to her voice, tired, apologetic, wavering. Mom, I don't know how to fix what I've done. I miss you. I'm sorry. I didn't delete it. But I didn't return it either. It was late September when the second call came. A quiet Sunday morning. Sunlight pouring through my kitchen windows, butter melting on toast, NPR humming from the little radio above the sink. I saw the name before I even picked up. Jenny. This time, she didn't leave a voicemail. She called again that evening. Then again the next morning. By Tuesday, I answered. Not because I was ready to forgive, but because I needed to hear it, to confirm what I already knew. Mom, she breathed, her voice breaking like a dam behind a single word. I don't know what to do. I stayed quiet. They froze everything, the business, our accounts. I can't even access my Venmo. Still, I didn't speak. I'm staying at a friend's. I can't afford rent. Trevor's lawyer dropped him after the arraignment. And I don't have anyone else. My thumb hovered over the end call button, but I waited. Then came the question, can you help me? Just a little? Just until I figure it out? I closed my eyes. The last time she'd asked for help, it was to convince me to trust Trevor. The time before that, it was for money to cover their business launch, which turned out to be a pyramid scheme they'd quietly buried. I took a breath, steady and full. No. Her silence on the other end was louder than her crying had ever been. "Mom," she whispered, "please, just this once." I paused, then said, with a softness that cut sharper than any scream, "You made your choice. This is mine." And I hung up. I sat there in the quiet, not shaking, not crying, just still. That night, I opened my laptop, clicked through to the local women's shelter website, made a donation in Jenny's name. $10,000. It wasn't about spite. It was about redirecting the energy she'd taken from me, turning it into something good, something useful, something that would lift someone who hadn't handed her soul to a smooth-talking thief in a tailored suit. The donation receipt popped up on my screen. "Thank you for empowering women in crisis." I smiled and printed it out. Not for her. For me.